Joanna Cherry.
In my naivety, Mr. Speaker, I thought we were coming to hear a statement on the Supreme Court judgment. But instead we've been treated to the sort of populist rant one expects to hear from the leader of a tin pot dictatorship or perhaps the current president of the States. Does the Prime Minister appreciate that his display is anathema to the democratic constitutional tradition of Scotland, which was upheld in the UK Supreme Court yesterday? And I pray to God, Mr. Speaker, that he won't take his own country onto the rocks. But if he's intent on doing that, will he first of all recognise the democratic mandate of the Scottish Parliament? He spoke a moment ago about consent to be governed holding the key. If he must take England on the rocks, and I hope he doesn't, will he recognise the democratic mandate of the Scottish Parliament and agree the means for a second independence referendum to be held in Scotland?
Well, Mr. Speaker, if I may say, I do congratulate the Honourable Lady for bringing forward that action, because she did produce an astonishing result, let's be in no doubt. It was a groundbreaking judgment, it was a novel judgment, and of course it's had the effect that we can all see before us today. Here we are, back in this House of Commons. But I may say on her second point, the people of Scotland voted decisively in 2014 to remain in the United Kingdom, the most successful union of nations in history, and they were told that it was a once-in-a-generation vote. I think it's absolutely wrong of her now to try to break that promise.
Dr. Julian Lewis.
When the Prime Minister eventually wins an overall majority at the next general election, will he make it a priority of his first majority government to repeal forthwith the ghastly fixed-term Parliament Act?
Mr. Speaker, I think we're going to concentrate on winning that overall majority first, and I share his sentiments entirely.
Rachel Reeves.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This afternoon has been a horrendous spectacle. We've got a Prime Minister who has broken the law and uses dangerous language of betrayal and surrender, which sows division and worse in the communities that we all serve. And then we have his MPs who clap him for doing so. But what this afternoon has taught us is how important it is that Parliament is sitting through these crucial weeks, because it is only through Parliament sitting that we can hold this government to account. And that's why it's so important that Parliament is not dissolved for a general election or prorogued again, so we can continue to hold this government to account, because if the Prime Minister has broken the law once, why should we trust him not to do the same again?
Well, I must respectfully disagree with the Honourable Lady in her characterisation of the Surrender Act, because I do think it does. I'm afraid it has done damage. It has done damage, and was intended to damage this country's negotiating position. But I do think that it is also right. It is also right in this context to work hard together to get a deal done and to deliver on the mandate of the people, because I think that is what her constituents would want to see.
Mr. Richard Drax.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Can I commend my right honourable friend for his firm stance on this whole argument? And can I also ask him that when he comes back, possibly with a deal, it does not mirror in any way, shape or form the deal that has already been thrown out of this House. I, for one, and I believe the people of this country, do not want to remain in a vassal state, or with vassal state status, for years to come. Let's get this done and leave the EU.
My honourable friend is valiant for truth in this matter, and he is right. The problem with the previously existing withdrawal agreement is it does or would keep the UK locked in the EU in tantamount to vassalage, and we will make sure that the deal we do bears no resemblance whatever to that predicament, and we will have a deal that I believe he can fully support.
Next questioner, Alison McGovern.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The irony is not lost on any of us that prorogation was nothing to do with Brexit, the Prime Minister told us, yet here we are talking constantly about Brexit. But it's the more serious point about our political culture, Mr. Speaker, that I want to raise with the Prime Minister. Because those of us who constantly remember our friend Jo Cox need our political culture to change now. It is getting toxic, Mr. Speaker. The Prime Minister's language is violent and his government is dysfunctional. So will he promise us that he will change? And can I ask him, just for this session, to take responsibility for his actions? Can he accept that he acted unlawfully? And bearing in mind that this issue is about advice to our monarch, will he tell us which of his ministers will resign?
I agree with the honourable lady that tempers have become very ragged across the country, and people feel the fever of Brexit, and I agree with her, has gone on for too long. But the best way to sort this out is to get Brexit done. And that is what we want. And I hope that she will join with us in getting a good deal for this country and getting it through this House of Commons.
Justine Greening.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister's talked about bringing a deal back to this House. He's also talked about his respect for the law and agreeing to make sure that he complies with the law. So can I ask him to be absolutely explicit that if he does bring a deal back to this House, and this House does what its right is, perhaps, and rejects it, that he will respect that, but he will also respect the so-called Ben bill that this House has passed, and then ask for an extension? And can I just say to him that continuing to call a bill that this House has passed a surrender bill is deeply disrespectful to this place, and he has said he must respect the Supreme Court ruling, and I would simply ask him to respect the decisions of this House too.
I must say to the Right Honourable Lady and my friend, the Right Honourable Lady, who I've worked with happily over many years, that actually I do think that the Surrender Act has done grave damage. What it would try to do, I speak as somebody who has to sit in.
Order. Can I appeal to colleagues in all parts of the House to calm down and let's have the exchanges. Everybody must speak in terms that he or she thinks fit, and I know we're all conscious of the premium that is placed by Erskine May on moderation and good humour in the use of parliamentary language. The Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I repeat that the experience of negotiating with our European friends and partners over the last few weeks has, I'm afraid, confirmed me in my view that the Surrender Act has made it more difficult for us to get a deal. And that is the sad truth, because what they hear is a parliament that is determined not just to stop a no-deal Brexit. That is not their intention. Their intention is to stop any kind of deal at all. That is what they want to do. And I can tell my right honourable friend that we will come out of the European Union